Okay, thanks so much, Mr. Chairs and committee member for the questions as well as the comment and observations on the issue in this cluster. So before I give floor to my other delegation to respond, I'd like to make some observations to two issues. One is the drug issue, the other one is the microfinance issues. Of course, I agree with you that we are facing the overcrowding issues in the prison, and mostly related with the drug issue. So according to the criminal laws, as you mentioned, drug users is not liable for the crime. I mean that drug using is not criminalized. But the question is that why we see a lot of drug users in the prisons. Because in Cambodia, in reality, at the same time, the drug users, normally at the same time also drug dealers and distributors. So for people using drug, addicted with drug, not regarded as a crime, not prosecuted, but they must be sent to the rehabilitation centers for the treatment, for the cureness of the such kind of addiction. Only the drug dealers, drug distributors that are criminally liable. But at the same time, the drug users, at the same time also the drug dealers, the drug distributors. And as the result, we are facing the overcrowding issue in the prison, and most of the prisoner related with the drug issue. And we have our own way to address the overcrowding issue in the prison. It's different from the recommendation or the advocacies made by the civil society organization and some other opposition. They suggest us that they make suggestion and recommendation. In order to address the overcrowding in the prison, we need to release the prisoners. So this is wrong. It is impossible. We cannot release the prisoner in order to address the overcrowding issue in the prison. Of course, we can address overcrowding issue in the prison, but when we release the prisoner, what happened to the securities and safeties of the peoples and the communities? So we have our own ways in accordance with the law to address the overcrowding issues in the prison. One is through the alternative sentencing, non-custody measures. We encourage our court to consider as much as possible the non-custody measures like pre-trial detention, release under the conditions, suspension of the sentence, or even community-based sentencings that they are guilty, but we don't put them in jail. We send them to work in the communities under the treatment of the government authority. Another way is to address the issue is to improve the rehabilitation, training rehabilitation program in the prison. Because if we have a good rehabilitation program, when they get out of the prisons, they can integrate effectively and live peacefully in the community and not come back to the prison. Normally, since we don't have that good program, particularly the people addicted with drug, when they go to the communities, they normally tend to come back because of another crime or the same crime that they still commit. So the only way to address this is to improve the rehabilitation program in the prison so that they can become a better person after they get out of the jail, they can find a job, and they can integrate effectively in the prison. Another good way to address the issue is on the alternatives dispute resolution. We need to have the alternative dispute resolution mechanism through mediation. The problem is that it related with the court issue as well, particularly the case backlog. So when a lot of cases come into the court and the court have enough resources, as the contextual background, Cambodian, I'd like to brief a little bit why we have a lot of people in the prison and why we have a lot of cases at the court. Because Cambodia has been launching a several campaign for the safety and security of the people at the community. Drug campaigns, the campaigns against the drug, against fishery, illegal fishery, deforestation, Komsankat or commune safety campaign. So since we conduct this campaign very effectively, a lot of people got arrested and a lot of cases billed and brought to the court because we conduct the campaign very effectively, very successfully. So a lot of cases brought to the court and a lot of people go to the prison. So when a lot of cases come into the court and the resource at the court not proportionate, not respond to the sharp indication of the case. That's why a lot of case backlog at the court. So when the case backlog, the people in the jail may remain longer, more than expected. So the best solution is that we need to address the case backlog at the court by increasing more resources, by providing more guidelines for the court to consider to use other alternative sentencing like suspension of the sentence, community-based sentencing, or release under condition, under supervision, or so on and so forth. This is the proper way, according to the rule of law and in accordance with the principle of human rights as well. We cannot do as suggested by the civil society and opposition party to release the prisoner in order to address the issue of overcrowding, because it affects the safety and security of the people in the community. We have our own way, and our own way is abide with the rule of law, with the principle of human rights as well. This is related to overcrowding issue concerning with the drug. About the microfinance, of course, this is the impact of the COVID-19 as well. It's suffer a lot. It's impact on the living conditions of the people, and a lot of people fall in debt with the microfinance because of the COVID-19, and they have no ability to pay back the loan. But we have our own way to address this. We got suggestion, and we also see the advocacy from some opposition and civil society to provoke people not to pay the debt, in order to address the issue. No, this is impossible. It's wrong. You take the loan, you need to pay back. You need to pay back the loan to the microfinance. And some other group, opposition and society, they do advocacy to provoke people not to pay the debt in order to address the issue. So we cannot do this. It's not in accordance with the law. We have our own way. What we done so far, just like to provide a subsidy, we work closely with the microfinance to review the loan policies, to give favorable conditions to the debtor, such as the extension of the period to pay the debt, or provide a subsidy. We support the debtors, like skill development and so on and so forth, training, so that they can have a job and have a better living condition, and they have ability to pay back the debt. This is what the government have done in accordance with the law. We cannot do like some other group that provoke people not to pay the debt in order to address the issue. This is what I just want to highlight in response to the follow-up question. In regard with the response to COVID-19, when it started in early 2020, we got a lot of negative response and feedback on the measures provided issued by the government at the time. At the beginning, we set up some necessary measures, which is the legal measures, administrative measures, and also medical health care measures. And in legal measure, we established some legislations that is missing in Cambodia. Law on the management of state emergencies, and law on COVID-19 prevention, so on and so forth. And with administrative measures and legal measures, we issue some restrictions to protect the life and safety and health care of the people, such as freedom of movement, traveling, gathering, so on and so forth, the lockdown, okay, vaccine obligation, so on and so forth, required by the law. At the time, some country and some international organization criticized that our law does not comply with the international human rights norm, and that's violate the rights of the people. But we still question until now. Now nobody question about the measures taken by the government at the time, because they see the result. So the result justify the mean. Now we control the situation better than the other. That's why we can open the economic and social activity normally. So this thankful to the measure taken by the government at the time, legal measure, administrative measure, and healthcare care measure. But it's still strange to me, and I'm still questioning about how some international organization and some country criticize Cambodia at the time. I don't know how many standards they use to look at the situation of human rights in Cambodia. When the COVID pandemic starts, some countries, they start to enforce law on state of emergency by declaring and putting the state under the situation of emergency, and it is okay. Nobody criticize. But when Cambodia want to do the same, we want to declare the country into state of emergency, but we have the legal problem because we don't have a law. We have only one article in the constitution that the king can declare the state of emergency, but we don't have the legal provision, we don't have the law on state of emergency in Cambodia. It means that after declaration, what we shall do, who does what, how to protect the rights of the people in that situation, what is the right and obligation of the government. Many other countries in Europe, they declare state of emergency, they use their law on state of emergency. In Cambodia, when we want to do the same, we don't have a law, we make a law, and then they criticize us. So I don't know how many standards they are using in evaluating Cambodia. When we set out the lockdown, restriction measures to protect the life of the people, the healthcare of the people, such as the vaccine obligation, so on and so forth, they criticize us. This is the violation of the right to privacy of the people. But when they do the same, they also have the vaccine obligation. They restrict the freedom of the people, gathering, movement, and lockdown. It is okay. They claim that necessary to protect the life of the people. But when Cambodia do the same to protect the life of Cambodian people, why it is the violation of human rights? So how many standards they are using? Example, another double standard. When we enforce the law, they always warning us, provide us a lesson, don't interfere into the court affair, because the court is independent. The government, executive branch, must not interfere into the court affair. But when we enforce the law on some activists that regarded as their alliance, their supporter, so on and so forth, and then they come to teach us, and they come to force us to interfere into the court to release them from jail. So what kind of lesson they are teaching to us? When we enforce the law, they teach us the lesson of separation of power, not interfere into court affair. This is separation of power. But when we enforce the law to their peer group, that they have a clear political agenda to support and to protect, they come to force us to interfere, to release them from jail, which is under the authority and jurisdiction of the court. So what kind of lesson? How many standards they have? To me, it's not double standard, maybe triple or more than that. So with administrative measures, with legal measure and health measure, that's why we are here today. So thankful to those measures. And now nobody criticize that measure anymore because of the result, satisfactions of the result. And there was a lot of manipulation, exaggeration of the law enforcement at the time. They criticize us that we make the law to punish our own people. A lot of people go to jail, prosecuted because of violation of COVID-19 law. But actually it's not true. Just only few people go to jail. But go to jail not because of violation of COVID-19 law, but because of violation of other criminal prosecution, criminal code, criminal law like incitement for violence, social unrest, so on and so forth. This is not violation of COVID-19 law. For those who violate COVID-19 law, we just say the warning. We just warn them, and then we let them go back home. For the violation of lockdown measures, gathering measures against the COVID-19 law, so they don't face the prosecution, they don't go to jail. They got fined some money by the police. They got re-educated so that they know their mistake and they won't do it again, make a promise and then go back home. Just only few go to jail, and go to jail not because of the breaking or violating the COVID-19 law, but because of the violation of the criminal code and criminal laws of Cambodia. And a lot of exaggeration, manipulations about the enforcement of the COVID-19 law at the time. They claim that we make the law to punish our own people, and a lot of people go to jail because of violation of COVID-19 law. This is not true. So that's why I can say, if you observe closely, we have Cambodia, we have two Thai Cambodia. One is Cambodian on the report of opposition and their alliance, and some international news supporting the group. And the other one is the real Cambodia, what actually happened in Cambodia. And we are here to tell you, to present to you what is the real Cambodia. Not Cambodia on the report, not Cambodian on the media, support by the opposition. In regard with the legal actions against union leader, as well as Nagawal leader, So they face the prosecution not because of exercising the right and freedom of union. They do something else. Like, for example, one former leader that finished the sentencing already, they bring the people to the border to look at the border, and then they make a judgment that there is the border problem. They have no skill about the border at all. They don't know how to read the map. They have no education knowledge about the border issue, legal issues, so on and so forth. But they bring the people to the border and have a look. So this is the exercising of union right, union freedom. Is the job of the union to do so? No. They have other agenda. And then they provoke incitement, violence, hatred against the government. So this is not the exercise of right and freedom of union, but it is the violation of the criminal law of Cambodia. So they're facing prosecution not because of exercising the right, but because of violating the criminal code of Cambodia. Like Naga World. I believe my friend from Labour will elaborate more about the mechanism to address the issue at Naga World, but I just highlight one question to you, why this issue cannot address. Is it the labor issue or is it other issue? Why those people not work for several months, no money, no income, but still protest, still go on strike? So where the support come from for them, and what the supporter really want from the strike activity? So they arrest the charge against Nagawa leader not because of the exercising of rights and freedom of union, but because of something else. As I mentioned already, the government authority have enough evidence to prove that there is the incitement, provocation, exaggeration, incitement for violence, hatred, okay, the violations on the private properties of the company, so on and so forth. They don't like the company leader. They don't like the working condition over there. The company paid them compensation according to the law. They don't accept it, still want to go and work there. So what they really want? They don't like the working condition there. They don't like the company leader, and company pay them according to the law. They don't accept it. What they want is to go to work at the place they don't like, to go to work with the leader that they don't like. So what do they want? Now they do not work for several months, but they still have money to do the strike, to do demonstration, to protest. So where the money come from? Who support them? What the supporter really want from them? If it is the labor issue, it can be addressed easily. They need to go through the mechanism of labor addressing mechanism. First, they go to arbitration. Arbitration rule already. Issue a word, they not accept it. Ministry of Labor try to negotiate to compromise the case. They not accept it. Now the last measure that they have to use to protect their rights is to go to the court, but they don't go to the court. They still want to protest. They still want to go to work at the place they don't like. They still want to work with the leader of the company they don't like. They don't accept the compensation by the company. So what do they want exactly? And they don't work for several months, no income, no salary, but they still can do it. So who support them? And why they support? What they want from that? Like VOD shutdown. Recently, freedom of expression in Cambodia is protected under the law. And freedom of expression, free press media, not freedom to fake the news, not freedom to insult, not freedom to slander. But what VOD did is not the proper exercise of right and freedom. They exaggerate fake news. They exaggerate misinformation, discredit the government with malicious intention to incite the violence and break up in the government. And the government require them to abide, to comply the rule in the press law of Cambodia, to make recollection and apologize, but they do not do it. So what is the last resort that the government can do? The government have authority administratively to shut down. And for the legal procedure at the court, it can be followed later. If you find that there is the criminal action, criminal conduct in that. So the shutdown of the VOD is not because they exercise the right and freedom of press, but because they exaggerate information, exaggerate the fake news, which impact the reputation, the image of the person and institution, particularly incite for violent hatred and the breakdown, the breakup in the government. So the shutdown of such misconduct media outlet is not to restrict the right and free press, but is to promote the code of conduct of media and freedom of expression and media in Cambodia, in according to the law and legal procedure of Cambodia. So I believe my other colleagues from labor and some other may also want to elaborate more on the labor issue and the social protection issue. Thank you. In regard with the civil society and land go, as I mentioned already, to me, I don't think it is easy. It is difficult to register or to set up NGO in Cambodia. If you can imagine, after the establishment of the law, the number sharply increased, double. Now we have more than 6,000 that some people claim Cambodia is the paradise of NGO. But we still need engagement. So all the recommendations, suggestions from NGO always put under consideration. We have mechanism to consult. We have the working group to consult with NGO. As I mentioned earlier, we received the suggestion to review 14 articles. Even those we see some are not appropriate, like one I mentioned already. They don't want law to require them to be transparent. They always want government to be transparent, but they themselves don't want to be transparent. They don't want the government to be under law, but they themselves, they don't want any law to monitor, to control their activity. They don't want to be politically neutral so that they can do whatever they like. So to us, in order to regulate, to maintain the public order, safety, for security reason, we need to have a law. And this law is not to restrict the activity of NGO, but to help support the NGO to be more professional. I like to elaborate about the context of civil society in Cambodia so that you understand and have sense about Cambodia, why the civil society, they come up like this. We still face three problems among the civil society, and our law is to support, to help them to be more professional. One is that civil society in Cambodia, we have more than 6,000, but still lack of professionalism and skill. No enough skill, no enough professionalism left. The second thing is lack of autonomy and independence. They still rely mostly on the external fund from other countries. So when they mostly rely on the external fund, they cannot fulfill their activity independently for the sake of the society in Cambodia. They listen to their donor. They have to look what their donor want from Cambodia, and they need to shape their activity according to the wish of the donor, not the wish of Cambodian people, not the wish of the nation. This is the problem of the civil society in Cambodia. The third problem is polarization. Polarization, they take sides. They take sides. That's why when the law requires them to be politically neutral, they don't want it. Because they take sides, they have political agenda, they want to engage in politics in the future, so that's why they're not happy with the law when the law requires them to be politically neutral. So this law not to restrict the activity of NGO, but to help build, to help support NGO to be more independent, more professional, and more social oriented for the benefit of Cambodian society. Like for example, when the government do something, we normally see a group of NGO make a petition criticizing the government. But they make a list of more than 40 civil society organizations. But if we look deeply, only 3 civil society, 3 or 4 that have actual activity and implement their activity in Cambodia. The rest, we never see. We don't know where the offices are. No staff, no headquarters, never done anything. But when they want to criticize the government to be heard by international community, they make a petition, a list of more than 40, where we don't know where they are, what they done before, and who are their headquarters and who are their staff. But they still can do it. They still can do it. We don't care. So I think they may be too free to do. But when we have a good law, they cannot do like that. So that's why they don't want to have the law, because they want to do whatever they want. And exercise right freedom without law is not democracy. It's anarchy. So we don't want this in Cambodia. So I like to give floor to Rathok to present some sense about Cambodia, because when you assess the human rights situation, you need to base on the concept. If you don't have the concept, you don't have the context, you don't have sense of Cambodia, you cannot have a fair judgment on the real situation of human rights in Cambodia. And in regard with the establishment of NHRI, actually, the government is working on the progress on the drafting process of the law. But I would like to highlight the background and the history a little bit, why the process of drafting the law take long, so more than 10 years. Actually, in 2006, with the request from the civil society to have the law on NHRI and to establish NHRI in Cambodia, the government agreed and handed this task to the civil society group to work on it. But later on, we don't know what happened to those civil society groups. They have no agreement, they have no unity, among the group of civil society in Cambodia, more than 10 years, nothing happened. Still, no draft of the law on NHRI, which under the responsibility of the civil society group. As a result, the government decided to take it back and to handle, to establish the law by ourselves in 2019. So now the draft law is under the consultation. The Cambodian Human Rights Committee is in charge of drafting the law on establishments of NHRI. And at the moment, we already complete the first draft of NHRI. And we also have completed the internal consultation with all stakeholders in Cambodia. We have consulted more than 40 times already with all different stakeholders such as civil society group, academia, professional, governmental institution, development partner, expert, researcher, and so on and so forth. And in the consultation process, Cambodian Human Rights Committee, or co-chair, together with the OHCHR office in Cambodia, in order to engage all stakeholders, all the civil society group that criticize and push for the establishment of this draft law. But unfortunately, most of the civil society in Cambodia, they participate, they engage in the discussion and consultation process. And you may be aware we have more than 6,000 civil society groups in Cambodia, but just only a small group, few group of civil society that denies and reject our invitation to join in the consultation process. And then they still keep criticizing, they still keep attacking the government in terms of the engagement and transparency of establishment of the law. But we don't know what they want exactly, because when we start, we decide to co-chair with OHCHR office in Cambodia to engage all the civil society group. But unfortunately, with invitation from the government, invitation from OHCHR office in Cambodia, they decide not to join in. They claim that they represent the whole civil society in Cambodia, and then they criticize that there is no involvement, participation from the civil society group. So I don't know what they mean or what they want from this. Many other civil society, they join. Just only this few group, they not join. And then they claim that they represent the whole civil society, which is more than 6,000 civil society group in Cambodia. And then they keep criticizing in their report that there is no engagement, no participation from civil society group. But actually, most of the civil society, they join. So what is the update? Now we complete the internal process of the consultation. So what we have to go further is that we need to go through the legal legislative making process of Cambodia. So the next step, we will move to the Council of Ministers for the interministerial meeting, and later on it will go to the Parliament for legislative review from the Parliament, which is bicameral. We have the Lower House, National Assembly, and the Senate. So it will go through one by one, National Assembly and Senate, and finally go to the Constitutional Council to review for the constitutionality of law, and then go to the King for the promulgation, so on and so forth. So at the moment, we're done with the internal process of the consultation. So we need to go further with the legislative making process of Cambodia, Council of Ministers, interministerial meeting, legislative review, constitutional review, and the promulgation by the King. So we do hope that we hope to complete the whole process within 2023. So the first start of the new government, because in this July, 23rd July, we will have the elections of the new government, the 7th mandate of the Parliament of Cambodia. So within 2024, we hope to complete all the process of the legislative making process. This is just the update of the NHRI establishment, the question why it takes so long, why it is complicated. So it takes so long, not because of us, but it was very long already with the hand of the civil society organization. So another one is, let me review, I will try to get what you mentioned. About land go, let me update a little bit. So Many civil society groups criticize that land go law on association and non-governmental organization. Many civil society criticize that this land go restrict the activity and the establishment of the NGO and association in Cambodia. But in contrary, after the adoptions of this land go, the number of civil society and NGO sharply increased double. So now we have more than 6,000 civil society NGO in Cambodia. So if the law restricts the activity and the establishment, we won't have such a big number of the civil society organization in Cambodia. You can imagine Cambodia is a small country with small population, just 14, 15 million, but we have more than 6,000 civil society organizations. So it's not proper at all to say that the law restricts the activity and the establishment. Some people even say that Cambodia is the paradise of the civil society in Cambodia. Easy to establish, easy to implement. But we take into account the recommendation and the concern of civil society as a partner. So now we decide to review the law on association and non-governmental organization with the suggestion and recommendation from civil society organization. So they propose us to amend 14 article, but from our review, we see that some proposals are not reasonable, are not appropriate at all. So why not appropriate? We still consider, we still engage, we still meet, we still discuss, but we just realize that, we just note that some proposal not relevant at all. One proposal which is not relevant is that they request to omit the law. No need to have law. They want government to obey the law, but they don't want to have law to monitor the activity. Another inappropriate proposal is that they don't want the law to set mechanism for the transparency of the civil society organization. They don't want the law to require them to be transparent in doing the activity and the funding they receive from abroad, because the law requires them to be transparent in terms of the activity by reporting the activity to the government, reporting of the source of the funding as well. So I don't know what they want exactly. They always require government to be transparent in everything, but they themselves don't want to be transparent in doing activity in Cambodia. But we still take into consideration, but we just want to find the logic behind that. What is the reason behind that? Why they don't want to be transparent? Why they want the government to be transparent, but they themselves not want to be transparent? So they want to do activity without the law at all. This is what they want. Another unreasonable request and proposal is that they don't want the law to require them to be politically neutral. They want government to be neutral, but they themselves don't want the law to require them to be politically neutral. So they want to do whatever they want, even align with any political party or do activity with the political agenda. So they don't want the law to require them to be politically neutral. Anyway, even though we see that it is not appropriate at all, but we still open the door. We still engage them in the discussion and consultation. And we also review the practice in other countries as well. What is the best practice? What is the common practice in some other countries? What do they do in terms of transparency? What other countries do in terms of the political neutrality? And why they want? Why they want this? So now the door is still open, and we have the working group of the government to work together with the civil society organization to discuss, to consult on the proposal on the amendment of the land go. So the consultation, the engagement still moving on. Even we see that some proposals are not appropriate at all, but we still open, we still engage, and we still discuss. Okay, so thanks so much again, Mr. Chairs and committee member for providing questions, observation, and also suggestion for delegation to consider in terms of promotion protections of human rights. So I will try to respond and provide the feedback to the comment raised by committee, and my other colleagues may raise some other issue later, like environmental impact assessment or indigenous people land titling and so on and so forth. So first about the independence of the judiciary, of course, I see some report of the special rapporteur and some of the international organization, they assess on the independent of judiciaries in Cambodia, and which not responding to the current situation and the actual system of the court in Cambodia. I noticed the observation, mostly they evaluate, they assess independence based on the credentials of the judge. I mean, who they are, what they do, and where they are from. And to us, theoretically speaking, the independent of judiciary, we don't look at who the judge are, where they are from, what they do, but we look at the professionalism of the judge. We don't care what they are, where they're from, or what they do. To be the judge, they must pass the entrance exam and study for 2 years, and then allocated to work in some respective areas or place. And to us, the justice means that justice by law, not justice by something else. So to assess on the independence of judiciary, we need to use the legal frameworks, the legal procedure to assess, to measure how the judge make decisions in its specific cases. If you look at overally, externally, what they do, where they are, and then you evaluate that they are not independent, it's not appropriate at all. So we need to look at about the how they based on the legal provision, the procedures in making decisions. So that's why independent here is by law. They fulfill all the requirements set in the law. They fulfill all their professionalism and code of conduct. And mostly in terms of the issue of land, the judge will make decisions based on the investigation findings and also the evidence in hand. So if one group they have the land ownership, land titling, then they are entitled to be the owners of the land. And for the other people or other group that invade or move to live on the land which legally owned by somebody else, and then they have to remove, they have to move out. So the court make decision based on the law. Based on the law means that legal procedures and evidence. And in Cambodia, we have a lot of problem that people do not have land from the history and context of land in Cambodia. I believe my other colleague, Excellency H.E.Dr, will also elaborate a bit more about the context of land in Cambodia, how we come up, how we start, and where we are now. Even now, some people still not have the land. So they just move from one place to the other place to live on the land because they do not have the land. Sometimes they move to live on the land which is legally owned by the other. And then there is the problem, the case brought to the court. So court, where the court have to look or what the court have to look, they look on the legal procedure, they look on the evidence base. So if you have the land ownership, the land title, you are entitled to be the owner of the land, and the other encroach or invade your land have to move out. So the problem is that a group of people, they come to in the land because they have no land. So if you require them to move out, where should they go? Okay, so they do not have land. That's why they come to move to live in the land of the other. So the court need to use the law only. They don't care where you go or what you have to do. Only the government need to have the social policy or social protection policy in order to support the people that do not have the land, like land concession, social land concession, so on and so forth. But the consideration of the social land concession is not the job of the judge to consider. The judge considers justice by law. If you have no evidence to prove that you are the owner of the land, you have to move out. But you don't have land, where you go? So this is the task of executive branch. The executive branch have to consider about the social land concession, social land concession, to help the poor, to help the people who do not have land. So you need to understand the context of the land issue in Cambodia, where the people still not, some communities still not have land ownership at the moment. Not everybody have the land ownership who live on the land. And my colleague H.E.Dr will present you a bit so that you understand. You have sense about Cambodia, the history of land in Cambodia, where it start, where it go now, why the problem of land happen a lot in Cambodia.